Self-sabotage is a real bitch sometimes. What is it we do here on the Red Pill? We swap notes. Now I'm sure a lot of people have heard all kinds of different stories about us, so I'm here to give you a glimpse inside the locker room. Who am I? I'm Ryan. I used to be one of these guys. Just like you, I was good with women and relationships, but I wasn't great at it. And when hard times hit, things got tough, and it turns out there is nowhere for a man to go to solve these problems and learn to thrive. So, we built this space based on the experiences of hundreds of thousands of men just like you. It's men swapping notes, iron sharpening iron. Welcome to the locker room. So my wife and I go to a team dinner tonight and got home later than usual. About 20 minutes after she got home, I went up to shower, and as soon as I closed the door, I get a text. After your shower, do you want to have sex? I told her I was tired and not really in the mood for the first time in about a month, since I had to deal with our puppy alone and do some housework combined with poor sleep. Then, not a minute later, which I read after the shower, I get a text saying she doesn't feel good and her stomach hurts. Now, I believe her. This isn't a post about how my wife is a liar. I'm just upset that I didn't take my one chance since early February to have sex, and I needed to post my fastest good to go from not good to go story. The previous record was at least 10 minutes. A couple of terms before we get started. Self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is a real bitch sometimes. You can see it in this guy's whole field report. He obviously wants to have genuine desire from his wife. I get that. Everybody gets that. You're in a marriage, you're in a relationship. It's kind of an expected thing. The whole point of wanting a relationship is for a good sexual connection between two people. He's not getting it, so he gets increasingly frustrated. The problem comes now is that he's created an identity around his sexual frustration. So you'll see in the end, when he tells this field report, the purpose of it isn't so he could actually solve this problem. His purpose is to reinforce this identity. And right now, his identity is the martyr in a dead bedroom who's completely taken for granted by his wife. It's like a martyrdom complex, and it's narcissism just as bad as any grandiose sense of self. People do self-sabotage all the time, and while there's a lot of reasons for it, I think the core reason is people are terrified of actually getting what they want. More so, they're terrified of actually failing when they try their best to get what they want and finding out they're not good enough, because that, again, attacks your identity as a man, as a husband, in this case, as a guy who takes a lot of showers. The female has one too here, but we'll get into that in a different discussion. Low libido and high libido. I absolutely cannot stand these terms, and I'm going to go off about why they're absolutely ridiculous. If you don't know, in the space that I come from, the red pill space, guys talking about relationships, sorting themselves out, there was a lot of other subreddits that people would end up coming to ours. And one of the biggest feeder subs that we ever had was the Dead Bedrooms one. And it was full of things just like this. Guys were absolutely distraught over their dead bedrooms. They almost used to brag about how long they had to go before they had sex last, as if it was like a badge of honor, which makes sense. If you're in a community that surrounds and creates its identity based on having a dead bedroom, having the deadest bedroom is probably making you the king of that mountain. Nobody wants that. But you're in a social hierarchy, so our need to get along and grow as a group and organize, turns out, makes a self-sabotaging thing. Terms high libido and low libido were a wonderful term that they used to describe with distancing language the idea of genuine desire or the lack of it. The person who wanted to have sex in the relationship would consider themselves high libido. The person who didn't want to have sex in the relationship would consider themselves low libido. And through this clever turn of phrase, you've now distanced people from their own desire, their own impulses, their own instincts, and now it's just a fault of the universe. It's not that I don't like you since you gained 50 pounds and won't get off the couch. It's that I have a low libido and you have a high libido. It's not that I've been unemployed for 8 months and I look like a slob and I dress in t-shirt and jeans all day, my gut's hanging out. No, it's that you have a low libido and I have a high libido. People are absolutely terrified of accepting their own personal responsibility for situations, and when it comes to a relationship, it's always your fault. Now, faults for women, children, dogs, nobody really cares about that as a man, but the mentality you need to have is, this is my fault, because through every stage in this situation, there will go, if you go back far enough, there's a decision point where you opted into what you're doing now. You go back to that place and you realize, okay, that part is my responsibility and it's something I can deal with. In this case, maybe the guy came out of shape, she doesn't find him physically attractive anymore. Maybe it's before that. Maybe he became needy, codependent, acted more like a girlfriend and not like a lover. Maybe even farther before than that. I'm sure you've seen tons of examples of guys who just took a woman who really wasn't theirs. She was infatuated with somebody else and he was a safe second choice, and so he never ever got her best, and the sex dwindles off anyway. Or you're one of those guys that catches a girl that's at the tail end of I wasted my 20s and all she wants is a baby. So you'll have great sex at first when she wants one, but then once she has one, she just doesn't have a need for you anymore. Either way, you can go to some point in this chain of events, point out the spot where you made a decision that made your life like this, and realize that you can fix that. If you're out of shape, you get into shape. If you have no game, you can build game. If you're not aloof, you can become aloof. If you picked a girl that only wanted you for a sperm donation, well, you do the math there, but there's some hard decisions you're going to have to make. Plausible deniability, it's kind of a bitch. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But women use it all the time. It's actually a core component of subtext or process communication. The point of process communication is you want to be able to say something without being accused of saying something. In this case, the wife most likely didn't want to sleep with her husband. How long had it been? Months? Since February, he said. I don't know when this one came out, but since February. The fact that you can name it down like that too, and the fact that he picked the most romantic month is also kind of funny. But here's the thing. He's going up into the shower. He's not feeling good. He most likely complained about it earlier, because I doubt this guy doesn't complain. Even when he was texting with her, and by the way, you're in the same house. Why are you texting each other? But she says, hey, do you want to fool around? Sends it on a text, knowing that he's going in the shower and he's probably not going to be able to for whatever reason. So she gets that plausible deniability where, as a wife, she knows that she and the husband are supposed to have sex. It's just the point of a relationship is that, otherwise you're just roommates. So by going through these motions, this theater, she gets to have that plausible deniability of saying, I would love to have sex with you, but all these things keep getting in our way. I mean, you had that shower last week. And that's the beauty of plausible deniability. It allows people to opt into their own delusion. In this case, he believes himself to be the downtrodden husband who's just not getting respect from his wife, and she's feeding into that by saying, oh, it's not our fault, it's because our libidos are different, things just get in the way, we're trying really hard because look at that text I sent you back in February. It's very dangerous, and sometimes you just need to cut through the BS and understand it for what it is. My advice for this guy, and he's not going to want to hear it, he won't follow it, and he'd most likely argue with me if I gave it to him. So the advice is going to be to him, but mostly for you. First thing he needs to do is, if he wants to sleep with his wife, sleep with your wife. If he got that text, jump out of the shower, go down there and caveman her right then and there. If she tries to shut him down there because she was expecting him to say no, well, then you've just laid bare that her plausible deniability is absolute bull. At the same time, the fact that he went to brag about how he actively acted unattractive here on purpose because he felt resentful, he's sabotaging himself. You got to stop doing that stuff too. Take a good hard look in the mirror. There's one in the bathroom most likely, and take a good look at what your problems are. Physically what your problems are, mentally what your problems are. We often say the brain is the most sexual organ in the female body, and they're not wrong. There's a reason why romance literature is absolutely huge in this space among women, because their brain is what turns them on, not their physicality. To a certain extent, it does, obviously. Being in shape will obviously help you out more than otherwise. But at the same time, if you're acting like a needy, complainy, codependent guy, you can't be surprised if your wife responds in kind. Why this matters for you? Well, this matters for you because we all have our own little scripts and identities we hold on to that we probably shouldn't. And this goes all the way back to self-sabotage. If you look at all the different, and I use the term flippantly, communities, you're going to see guys that actively create communities about things that aren't helpful to them. I tell a story in my book upcoming where when I was in college, there was two groups of guys. There was the groups of guys that were on the volleyball team. There was groups of guys that were on the sports teams. They were just fun-loving guys. They went to the bar, they made a group, and they hung out with women. They had a great time. There was another group of guys that loved their cars. A lot of Asian immigrants had come down from wealthier families, and they ended up having nice souped-up sports cars, Honda Civics all souped up, fancy cars. But a lot of these guys were, we're from redneck town. And they souped up their Ford Focus with fart cans and all this goofy nonsense. And every weekend, they would sit in that parking lot and they would show off their cars that they had spent their entire salary on or their entire college fund on, showing off amongst each other. They built a community out of something. But the one thing that was missing was women. So it was weird in that these guys were doing something that was arguably there to attract women, but didn't actually attract women. They were so focused on the organization and the group that they were wallowing in each other's misery. So how this matters for you is you got to pick and choose your identities based on what's more helpful for you. You got to be able to shed this stuff, and you can't internalize it, because if you're at a point where you haven't slept with your wife since February and the opportunity comes up and you don't take it, and then you brag about how you're such a silly man because you don't do that, well, realize you're setting yourself up for failure, and for once, you're succeeding at something in life. An alternative for this, I mean, this is like a 1-year male action plan type thing. This would be the kind of guy that I meet after having a client meeting and would end up taking him on as a client. It would take about a year. This is the whole point of Dread, by the way. If you're going to go through and talk about Dread Game, I have articles on my blog about it. I think I've talked about it here on Red Morning, at least one of the weekends podcasts. You'll check them out, by the way. They're Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock. You're going to love it. I won't go through the steps here, but just know there's a separate, deliberate roadmap for this. Now, the one thing I will say as an alternative, he can't be thinking about this as this is a way to win my wife's affections. He has to think about it in this way. She's already proven she doesn't want to be with you sexually. So as far as a relationship can go, it's already dead. You're just roommates. Go to luncheons together, have fun. You now have a sparring partner to practice. Take a deliberate set of steps to get prepared to leave her and have zero lag time between that and finding another girl who will fulfill your needs. Now, being the altruistic guys we are and the fact that we don't like divorce rape, you're also going to have an olive branch. Most of the time what happens is a guy starts building up his value, his abundance, and his options, and a lot of girls will end up going, yeah, I really don't want to lose this high-value guy to that girl over there. And they tend to step up their game to match. If that's the case and you want to take her back and it's not too far gone, then great. But it's never the focus. It's only the pleasant side effects and more of a reward for her figuring things out before it's too late. On that note, though, I'm going to leave you to it. I want to give a shout out to Patreon yet again. Enjoy this one, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.